Here is my LEGO Technic Bugatti Chiron Grand Sport 300 Aero. It's a 1:7 scale model of a made-up special edition of the Bugatti Chiron. The Grand Sport stands for a convertible roof, which I wanted to put in my model, but haven't come on any real Chirons yet. The 300 stands for the 300-mile-an-hour edition of the Chiron, which had the longer rear end and a bit of a different rear. And the Aero stands for the fact that I've got some working flaps in my car that real Bugattis don't have. On the outside, you can see I got printed Bugatti stickers, fairly realistic headlights, hood line there. Put custom rims on and custom brake calipers that are able to rotate, so they hopefully stay level even when the wheels turn. Working LED headlights and taillights, some other custom stickers, characteristic curve there. The interior has some adjustable seats that are pneumatically adjustable, that I'll show you later. It's got a steering wheel that works, that I'll show you later. Some working gauges up here. That one is askew. That's better. This lever controls the park reverse neutral drive gearbox. Other seat inside of the doors have some detail too. The doors have spring-loaded latches. They don't actually catch because there's more weight on the front. If I put my finger under the front here, it will catch. Normally it won't, unfortunately. And it's also spring-loaded. The glove box here opens and technically has a latch, but it's too much work to ever undo. You can't see it, it's too dark there, but that's okay. The steering wheel can be adjusted up and down and in and out. There's a small lever down here that controls the gas cap opening as a nice additional detail as well. I also have a small opening panel back here that's only for the operator's use. It's got, you can't see there. You can see a bit there. There's 6 pneumatic switches down there, pneumatic pressure gauge there, and right here we've got the top end of a manual pneumatic pump. Here are some of the pneumatic seat adjustments. Sliding, and should be tilting. Maybe I don't have enough pressure, or maybe it's just stuck. There we go. I'll add some pressure now. Should hop back in a minute. So yeah. Well, it moved a bit. And the same works on this side here. Not sure if I have enough pressure. There was some. Well, that one's working nice. The hood here is also pneumatically controlled, using a large cylinder there. There's also a pneumatic differential lock. This is the lever. It's locked there. Unlocked. Locked. Unlocked. The final pneumatic function is an airbag. There's this little lever here that's hooked up to a pneumatic switch. The idea being that if you rammed it into a wall, this would activate. And it would activate an airbag, which is under that panel there. So let's see if this works. Yep. So the passenger would hopefully not hit their head on the dashboard. The same is not true for the driver, but I didn't think I could fit an airbag into the steering wheel while keeping it looking good. So I just put it on the passenger side. The final pneumatic related function is this motorized compressor that can be used instead of the manual pump up there. So it can be controlled by just bumping this, which is hooked up to the, well, hooked up to the switch, and the motor, which runs the compressor. Doesn't have much torque though, so it stops once the pressure is fairly low. Another manual function is the suspension. There's independent double wishbone suspension on all four wheels. It's got all the fancy angles. It's got caster, camber, kingpin inclination. It's got 2 hard shocks per wheel. You can just faintly see up there. Unfortunately, though, the car is much too heavy for the shocks. I tried adding some rubber bands, but they didn't really help, so when it's on the ground, the suspension is always bottomed out, so I can only really demonstrate it in the air like this. The car has a very, very complicated steering setup. It's got one servo motor in the front and another one in the rear that each control their own axle steering. So the front axle steers like that. Here's the rear wheel steering. Not as much like normal rear wheel steering. There are working steering flaps in the front to slow down the inside when you're steering. And the steering wheel also rotates. Another interesting feature of the four-wheel steering is that you can see right now that the front and rear wheel steer the same way at the same time. You can probably kind of see it. The rear wheels don't steer much, but they're going the same way right now, so it's technically crab steering. But if I flip the car over, you can see that the rear servo motor is controlled by this switch here. And this switch is connected by a fairly complicated drivetrain to the gearbox motor. So it's got the total effect of doing it crab steering while you're in fast gears and having traditional four-wheel steering in low gears. See if I can get it. Here we go. Which is how many real-life four-wheel steering cars work. It offers greater maneuverability and, well, greater maneuverability at low speeds and then better control at high speeds. Alright, that should be enough. There we go. You can see now that we've got regular four-wheel steering going here because it's in a low gear now. Another steering-related function can be seen in the headlights. This system is supposed to emulate the systems found in some modern high-end cars that allow the headlights to kind of trace a path around a corner when a car steers. So my LED is mounted on a rotating axle, so that when the car steers, the light points slightly differently. You can see a bit more of the system. Let's see. See, fill out. It falls out a lot because I have it attached into one of the new, how do I describe it? I have an example. I don't know, you can see the part up there, that gray one way up at the top. And those pieces seem to have just unusually low friction in them, so it can't hold the LED in very well. But anyways, that system works on both headlights. The other one has also currently fallen out, but it's kind of a neat little thing, I think. I don't think I've mentioned the spoiler yet. I'll talk about it more later, but when it's up, the final steering function, we've got working flaps. This one doesn't seem to want to come back up. Now currently, you can see that these flaps are different from the ones in the front, and the reason for that is that right now the car is in, I think it's in the crab steering mode? I'm not sure which one it's in, but depending on the mode it's in, the front and rear flaps can be one way or the other. I guess also for the steering I should mention that I've got Ackerman steering geometry to an extent, and a bit of toe-in. Perhaps the most satisfying feature of this model is the convertible roof. Currently, no real Bugatti Chirons have convertible roofs, but it was one of the functions I wanted to make, so I made it work. It's prop up the windshield to where it's supposed to be. Make this look a little better. Let's see if I can't get it. There we go, that's better. So it's controlled by one XL motor right behind that yellow piece. It runs some universal joints up. There's an axle that runs along here that it connects to, and there's a couple small tires that go just down there below this, and they run against it to make it move. Might be my most reliable convertible roof ever. The only thing that was giving me problems earlier was sometimes they would catch right there on that corner of the engine, but haven't been giving me problems with that anymore, so that's good. Now I mentioned the spoiler raising. It's done by a media motor tucked at the bottom somewhere, and it's got two large linear actuators that raise it. And then it starts to tilt when it gets to the end of its travel. So, it's a pretty simple and reliable function. That only became complicated because of all the stuff I chose to do with the flaps, which are controlled independently here. Getting confused with my roof motor. The car has four-wheel disc brakes controlled by this L motor. First it runs through a worm gearbox here, and splits off into these two linear actuators. A combination that gives it plenty of torque. This then pulls here, which pulls on this black lever, goes down there and turns one of those tan bevel gears, which then turns another shaft along this axis, which pulls that dark gray beam, or rotates that dark gray half beam in there to pull a tow ball link, which you can see it better up here than the black one. Then pulls these rubber parts against the disc. And pretty much the same setup goes in the back as well. So, start applying them. They start contracting. Gears start turning. I'll stop it at that. So, it's now noticeably harder to turn both front and rear. That one's broken. Well, a different part there is broken. The suspension is. But when you have wheels this big, they can still move a fair bit. But it's like probably the biggest reason it's not turning is because it's got to turn the other wheel. So the brakes aren't as effective as they might be, but it's okay. Another thing here is this link, which is hooked up all the way through to there, and hooked up to the brake pedal you can see on the floor there. I'm going to release it now, and you should be able to see the pedal move up. There it comes. Additionally, there are working brake flaps, so watch these two in the front closely. They don't actually move very much, unfortunately, but should go a bit. Oh, we have motion. Alright, that's as far as it's going. Back down again. In case you're wondering, the linkage to this is on that beam down there. The bottom half is hooked up to the brake linkage, and the top is hooked up to that linkage along there, which then pushes some other stuff to do this. You mostly just have this one moving. This one is hooked up to the same axle as this, but backlash means it doesn't move. The brake flaps in the rear are also functional. I have a lot of the back ripped off here. Maybe you'll be able to see some of the mechanism. It's more from since I did this, but amazing. I think something broke moves. Releasing the brakes. That one goes up, the other one, this elastic isn't quite right. Alright, so that brings the brake functions to a conclusion. When I was planning out this model in my mind, I thought maybe I would try to make some sort of anti-lock braking system, but that, I don't think it would have worked out. They're also working windshield wipers. They're powered by a, it's pretty hidden back there. I think it's a medium motor. Oh yeah. There's also height-adjustable suspension front and rear, using one large motor per side. The setup in the rear is pretty much identical to this one here. It's got 8 tooth gears that go to this linear actuator that's hooked up to the shocks at both ends. So if we lower it, it's getting like that, and raising, looks like that. It's naturally more hesitant. So if I want to get it up, I'll get it up to the very top here by giving it some help by lifting it up. And that's as far as it'll go, I think. So now I'll lower it and let you watch here. It does noticeably lower. And there is the same system in the back, but it's much less visible, and with this much weight, it's pretty hard to notice. The model's drivetrain is very, very complicated. It starts out with 2 XL motors, one about there and another on the other side. They're then geared to this custom-made W16 piston engine, and as well as that to a 8-speed dual-clutch sequential gearbox controlled by, I think it's an L motor. And then it goes forward into a park reverse neutral drive gearbox controlled by this lever here. From there, it comes to this central differential here, which then runs directly to the rear wheels, where it runs out both sides. Then it goes to the front, where it's actually geared up in order to give it a torque vectoring effect, meaning that more torque is sent to the rear wheels than the front wheels. So it's like so much rear wheel drive, so much front wheel drive, but more rear wheel drive. Anyways, and then it goes from there up to the front and out both sides. Also connected to the drive motor, there's a servo motor that resides under the floor. It controls the gas pedal, as you can see down there, and additionally through a linkage. It also controls this speedometer there in the middle, which is in the spot of the speedometer on the real car. Here it's probably more of a tachometer. You can see some of its linkage by removing this here. And if I flip it up, see the servo at work. So right now I think it's in 7th gear. You can see that wheel turning. This one, start turning, there we go. Yeah, there it goes. Central differential's going there. So it obviously was going forwards there. I don't think it's in reverse gear. So if I go onto my lever here, that must have been drive. So if I move it forward a little, maybe I'll be able to find neutral. I can't actually see where it is. That's obviously not neutral yet. Looks like it. That can't be it. So now it's going the other way, signing the reverse. There, that's neutral in between. Drive. Neutral. Reverse. And park. Should lock it up. Well, the park doesn't seem to be working. I really can't see the gearbox, so it's hard to know what's going on. I've now removed a big mess of the rear bodywork. Don't worry, I can fix it. To give you a better look at the engine here, it's a custom designed W16 engine. I know it's not really a W16 because the pistons should, for a W, they'd be going bloop, 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 whereas these ones are all flat on the bottom. But it has the most important characteristic in my mind, which is a single crankshaft for all 16 cylinders. I've been having trouble with the drive motors skipping out, but I'm going to see if I can get this running long enough to show you the engine working. Kind of having to help the gear along here. It's unfortunate how weak this is, especially this one patch of gearing there. Okay, turns out I was wrong. The motor for the gearbox is a medium motor. It's got a worm drive there, 20 times reduction. Then it goes into the main gearbox, which is under the engine here. It's kind of, well, trying to decide if I should take out the motor to show you. I don't think I will right now, but so it's the main design. We've got a single rotary shifter in the middle. Nah, I will take this out. There we go. There we go. So, we got our one rotary shifter in the middle here. It's good for pushing, and it pushes the transmission driving ring. It doesn't mesh with gears. Instead, it pushes gears. And this determines which half of the gearbox will be active. And then it is somewhere or other, it's geared down 4 times to get to each of the rotary shifters under those, which then shift other 4-speed gearboxes. So the drive from the motors goes from here into there, and then out through this shaft. You can see there's the little red gear down there. It's one of the nice sliding ones. That moves it down and then brings it to the park reverse neutral drive gearbox. I'll let it shift for a while and just let you watch it. Now I suppose I should do my least favorite part of every one of my big cars. Finding out if I can get the stinking thing to drive. Well, do you look at that? It's in the first gear and it's moving. It may not look like it's moving, but it is. Fifth gear is very slow on a car like this. So the hope is that in 8th gear it might actually move as well. So come to think of it, I don't think the car is actually moving. I think the tires are just spinning on the ground. Here is the 8-speed dual-clutch sequential gearbox I used in my 1-7 Bugatti Chiron. This is the main input for the shifter. So it turns this thing here, which slides that transmission driving ring to mesh that 22th gear with the 16 tooth up there, or the 24 with the 12 here. Then it's geared from there to there to there to there to there, and the same on the other side to get to these other 2 shifters, which shift the regular 4-speed gearboxes. Takes a fair bit of torque to shift. Anyway, that's how that works. Up here we've got a sliding shaft, because this here needs to slide. So the transmission driving ring. So we've got one of those slippery red 8-tooth gears, and then a 20-tooth gear with clutch that doesn't mesh with the axle at all. Back here is just the necessary gearing for the both hard coupling the drive motors and for, well, just the external gearing that's needed for a gearbox like this. The motors, I believe, attach here and here for drive, and the shifting goes here. And this chain up here was just to attach the piston engine. But I can show you what it looks like a little bit while it's rotating. first of all, I told you I could fix it. And secondly, this dial here, it's technically hooked up by a long linkage to my gearbox. And it was going to be sort of a speed indicator, but there's a lot of universal joints connecting them and gears and this mess. So that between backlash and universal joints bent to kind of extreme angles, not wanting to work, and everything. Like, it might change jerkily from time to time when I'm shifting, but it's not accurate at all. Overall, I had some fun with this model. It took me way longer to build than any of my other things, but I got to try out some new functions and just have some new challenges. Try a 1 to 7 scale car for my first time. And I'm pretty pleased with the result. It's all, well, it's not all the function I was hoping it would have, but it's got plenty of functions, and most of them work tolerably well. Not that well, but I think it's pretty good for a car this complicated. I may never build a car this complicated again because it's so much work, and then you just have to try to get it to work at the end as well. It's frustrating, but satisfying too.